Hello, all students of science. So I was going through some of the submissions and I came up with this rubric based off what my expectations were for you verbally from Google Classroom and what you produced in total. If I were to go off my original plan of using the point system, it would be detrimental to your grade and not technically what I had set up for you guys for the expectations. So I've come up with this. I'm going to explain it to you, and this is relatively going to be feedback for what you need to do in the next submission. So a 7 would be top of my standards. This would mean that both the questions were answered correctly. You had a question that can be investigated. That was the feedback I kept telling you guys throughout the videos. Then your hypothesis or design statement either has to give an answer to your question, stating the variables, independent, dependent, and controlled. Doesn't have to be explicit, but it has to be there. Or your design statement for what you're going to make and how you're going to make it. These, as I look back on the videos, as I looked through your submissions, these are my expectations for you. If all of these were met, all of your group members got it in, you will get a 7. Now, for the questions, like I said to you guys in class before the submission, part of this assessment is to see if you downloaded the rubric, did everything you needed to do, entered it into Google Classroom, as well as your completion of the 2 sections of this rubric. This is going to be a long process, but it needs to be continuously worked on. If it's not, then you're going to run into problems as we get closer to the due date. So here's how I broke down the other grades on this rubric. So if you receive a 6, it means that the answers, your hypothesis, design statement, and questions were done correctly. But one or more of your members didn't turn in the rubric, or the rubric was not in the correct format. The reason why I'm going to give you a 6 is because you need to work together as a group. You need all of your group members on board. And I know there are a lot of students really trying to get their group together, and that's great, but you need to make sure that those other people are following through. If not, you work with me, and then we can get a plan involved to make sure that does happen. A 5 would be that most of the members didn't turn it in. This would happen in a group where one person is given all the responsibilities, the other group falls behind. One person then, in turn, turns in the stuff for everyone else. This isn't in the circumstances that I've gotten emails for where one person turned in their rubrics under one account. So this will be your grade if those people don't come up to me and demonstrate competency in their other group members. Then 4. This is where it starts going into the logistics of your answer. If your answers aren't following my expectations after the time set, Google Classroom no longer becomes my priority focus. It becomes your ability to comprehend my expectations, your ability to understand what the rubric is asking, and how you're going to be able to set up this investigation. So 4 would be, I look at your answers, and it doesn't really follow my given instructions, my expectations. I feel very unclear reading it, but I can kind of see where you're going from it. Then you have a 3. This will mean that your question can't lead an investigation. If your question can't have an investigation to be able to solve it, or you build something and create a design statement to help answer that question, then it's not really relative to the project. It's not relative to learning how to create something as a scientist in a scientific mindset. So I'm going to have to dock you for that. Then if both your question isn't able to lead an investigation and your hypothesis or design statement isn't related to your question, then you're going to receive a 2. If both of these happen and there's a large formatting issue and I'm unclear of the progress that you've done in the last month, then you'll receive a 1. If you're receiving a 3, 2, or a 1, I'm going to start having one-on-one meetings in tutorial. I'll let you know when that is ahead of time. These will happen until probably December. They're going to be handled as I feel like there's a tutorial free where I don't need to give any large groups of students help. Then I'm going to meet with you in that time. So this is going to be how I'm going to grade it. Your grades will not be done until this after this weekend. I really want to spend some time looking at these and thinking about them and developing feedback. In order to do that, I need to make time for myself to make this as accurate as possible. So just give me some time to finish that, and by next week you should have all of these done. If something comes up, I'll leave a note on Google Classroom. I'm going to be doing this by class, so it'd be specifically for the classes that I haven't made it to yet. But I should have everything done by this weekend if my time frame remains consistent. So just keep that in mind, and you can reference this if you need to know how your grade is reflected on your rubric, or if it doesn't really fit the feedback. You can also use this to make rebuttals if you don't feel that I gave you a fair grade of your work. I can explain my logic behind it, and we can go ahead and work to a compromise if need be. But otherwise, right now, this is how I'm going to be grading the check-ins. So if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments, and you can also always ask me at school. So that is that. I hope you all have a fantastic day or night, depending on when you decide to watch this, and I'll see you in class.